This is a Ben Frank Connection presentation.
Let's get on with the show. What's going on, everybody? We are here, the ABJ podcast. ABJ presents Tornado Tag, episode 124, the history of the American dream, baby. Dusty Rhodes.
That's one.
Yeah, a lot of impressive.
I set the over-under for bad Dusty impressions at 6.5 for this episode.
Oh, well, that one doesn't count then, because it was amazing.
They're all bad.
You're right. But yes, we are covering the history with that. We are officially the last Sunday of the month. Tomorrow's April Fool's. I still think Philly is hosting WrestleMania, right? That wasn't a joke.
If they're really committing to the bit, if they're not, because the stage is getting set up right now. The big canopy over the ringside is set up right now.
Yeah, so it's going to be very exciting. Very, very pumped that we are going to be heading to WrestleMania in Philly. We're not actually going to WrestleMania. We will be at the festivities amongst Philadelphia. I'm sure I will be at Labor of Love on Wednesday and Thursday at the Attic Brewing Company facilities in Germantown. Just kind of hanging out, supporting our boys over at the Opinion City podcast. We'll be doing the pre-show and post-show. I'm going to try to go around and get some 5 questions with ABJ. Maybe get my bucket list 5 questions right then and there, that show. Fingers crossed. Looking at you, Ultramanus. You're going to be there. Just give me 3 minutes. I'll knock them out quick. I don't need anything special. You know what I mean? But also I will be on Saturday, night 1 of WrestleMania, over at the block party on South Street, 628 South Street. It'll be from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Suplex Vintage Wrestling. ABJ will be on commentary for Suplex Mania. That card is absolutely stacked. A lot of people we know, BP, performing on this one, are going to be wrestling on this one. The show's going to open with the Clutch Catch Point Student Battle Royal, which will open the show.
No, a few of those people.
Yeah, we know a lot. We know a bunch of the really good school. That is that's Gulak School, Wheeler Yuta, and Tracy Hot Williams, I believe, are the 3 people involved with that school.
I know Phil Stamper's been doing a lot of seminars there.
Yes, yeah, very much so. And then the opening match will be Nick Wayne versus Marcus Mathers. Banger. AEW's own Nick Wayne. Zeta Steel will be taking on Jada Stone. The post game will take on the Rep. Deshaun Pratt will take on Matt Quay. Aaron Ash will take on Mr. Grimm. Rocket, no longer Rocket. Sean Smith will be taking on Teriyaki. But I think they added
Smith, I believe is.
Yeah, I think just for now he's going with Sean Smith. He's filling that out. I think they added that as a triple threat, but I forget who the third person is. But yeah, that one's going to be a banger. Jordan Oliver versus Griffin McCoy, and then Joey Janela versus Broski Jimmy Lloyd. So that's going to be a really, really fun show. BP, where are you going to be at that weekend?
I have no idea yet. I'm a civilian that weekend. I'm not booked anywhere. I'm not doing anything other than enjoying some wrestling. But I probably should have planned it out a little better.
Because it's better going by the seat of your pants.
Well, it is until things get sold out.
Yeah.
I think I will be. I'm not 100%. I think the strongest inclination I have anything. I'm 99% sure I will be at that show at Suplex. That block party at Suplex.
You know what's weird? I haven't enjoyed a Pilgaroo beer with you.
They will
in
be
a
there.
long time, and we're gonna do it in Philly because Tony Deppen will be bringing Pilgaroo brews to Suplex Mania.
Yeah, and then I have a somewhat strong inkling that I might check out that Ring of Honor show.
Okay.
The Super Card of Honor, whatever their big thing is.
I
believe that's Friday night.
Mm-hmm. And then also, if you guys want to grab your ABJ podcast merch, it will be available. I will give it to here's the bit I'm going to do. Every 13th of the month, the 13th, it's a cool number.
The 13th caller.
Yeah, the 13th of every month, I will rotate the new logos for the month. So I said logos like I'm from Philly. Did you hear that? Logos.
Logo.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a new logo at the 13th of every month.
Yeah.
That doesn't count as a Dusty impression.
No, it does not. But I will flip. So if you'll have till the 13th to get your Philly merch, and then after that we will flip it around and get some new ones out there. That might be subject to change because I think
after that you take the clothes, you put them in the water.
Yes, and then you throw them out. You throw them in the trash. I put them in the drawer.
If I'm down there for 5 days, I might start talking like that again. That's my big fear.
That would be amazing.
That's my big fear.
Former content that's out right now. Also, you can check out the Ben Franklin Connection. They have some really cool exclusive merchandise. So if you want to grab that ABJ Club, the Witchcraft by Lilly, King Ralph, or the Russell Club stuff, that's all available and much, much more over there to support the Ben Frank Connection. Episode just dropped with Evil Dead Rise with our buddies Charles Moran. Had an absolute blast with that one. Charles didn't know the format of the show and came on not watching the movie, so that was a lot of fun.
Oh, there you go.
He still killed it though. And then Dante, Elizabeth James, Kate joined the podcast. Our most viewed episode so far.
Right.
Comes to like actual people commenting, most comments, most engagements, most likes, and the most people watching at one time. At one point in time, between YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, we were up to 186 people watching that episode. I'm very, very proud of that. It showcased my ability to do interviews outside of the world of professional wrestling. So very, very proud of that. And the only thing I can announce right now on Thursday when I'll be in Philadelphia, I don't know why I said it like that, episode with Mark Sorrells from the Kryptonaut podcast will drop at midnight. So you guys will be able to check that one out on Thursday. 5 questions with ABJ while we were at the Worldwide Dojo. We're wrapping that one up here with Brew Vallon. And then also the next, Brew Vallon's out now, but on Monday, we'll be dropping with Al De Niro. On Wednesday, we'll be dropping with Danny Moe. And that's when I was at PPW at the Slatington Expo Center. What was it? Born to Run. We were at that show.
Got to fix that graphic. Says Denio Mo.
I fucking broke that. I fucked it up again. Oh, that's the old one. I did fix it. Yeah. So it is corrected. Sorry, Denio Mo. You're a sweetheart. I will do that justice. Let me put it up. Because I'm
a little scared. Danny's got a tough draw at the next PPW show.
Yeah.
Danny might come out a little worse for wear on April
There's
20th.
Danny Mo. Yeah. And then on Friday, Dio Bando.
Baby. You always have to throw the baby after that.
Dio Bando baby.
No. Baby. You have to put the on the baby.
Oh, okay. I'll try my best. But that's pretty much it. BP, you had a real busy week. What's going on with you? You hosted some trivia. You did a lot going on.
I'm surprised I still have a voice. There were times throughout the weekend where I thought I wouldn't. I'm like, how am I going to do this? So I've had a busy couple of days here. Thursday night, great time at Pilgaroo Brewing. WrestleMania trivia, 1 question for all 39 WrestleManias. What was
your hardest question?
For me, I think the hardest question may have been for WrestleMania 31, what 2 former rivals teamed up to defeat the Bella Twins? Because I didn't want to make them look, if I'm trying to just stump everybody, that's not fun.
Yeah.
So you got to have some that everybody can get. Like, first question, who was Hulk Hogan's partner at WrestleMania 1? Pretty much everybody can get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the partners, the team that defeated the Bella Twins at WrestleMania.
Was it Lita and Triss?
No, it was Paige and AJ Lee.
Oh, really? I did not know that one.
And then the tiebreaker questions were a little harder. Like
so it went to a tiebreaker?
Yeah. And this is something, if you know it, you know it, but it's like one of those it's actual trivia. Like, it's like, oh, by the way, did you know this? Like, Rhythm and Blues, the Honky Tonk Man and Greg Valentine had a concert at WrestleMania 6. And they didn't announce who it was because he wasn't really that famous outside of a certain area at this point, but who drove the pink Cadillac they came to the ring to?
Little Richard.
Diamond Dallas Page.
Oh, and you know what? I didn't know that.
And it wasn't like, hey, we're going to bring in DDP. It's just that DDP owned a pink Cadillac at that time. They like, hey, can you bring it and you can be on WrestleMania? So he literally drove the pink Cadillac. I think he was living in Florida at the time, wherever he was living at the time. He drove it from there to Toronto just to be in WrestleMania 6.
Who won? Anyone we know?
No, it's
Good turnout.
decent. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was a decent turnout. Fun time. Fun time had by all. And then from there, the Sanctuary on Friday night, the annual Stampede. A lot of fun there. I got to do commentary with the great J.S. Hawthorne, who I have that magic touch. There was once upon a time I interviewed a guy, and then 3 or 4 days later he beat Chris Jericho on AEW Dynamite.
He got signed.
This weekend I do commentary with J.S. Hawthorne, and then the next day he pins former at least WCW Cruiserweight Champion, if not WWE Cruiserweight Champion, Shannon Moore. He just interjects because he has like a Money in the Bank type thing in Shannon Moore's match with Bro Keller, and steals Bro Keller's 3 Legacies Wrestling heavyweight title.
Yeah, so J.S. Hawthorne is a Sanctuary World Champion and a 3 Legacies champion now.
And then while he's doing that, I am at AXW in Warwicksburg, Pennsylvania. They're making their return to Schuylkill County. Huge crowd, fun times, and a really great show. And I did commentary there. So yeah, my voice is shot.
And all 3 shows had really good turnouts. People are showing up. People are supporting. AXW had a really good turnout for a brand new venue. 3 Legacies looked like they had a real packed house. So fun times to be all in the independent wrestling scene in the Northeast PA area.
If you can see the tea bag, I'm literally drinking tea right now because that's how shot my voice is.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll rest it this weekend screaming at WrestleMania events. But yeah, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Anything this week in wrestling that we want to cover? I know the big one is the Rock's beatdown of Cody Rhodes. They finally allowed them to touch before WrestleMania.
Well, it wasn't only that. We got blood. We got blood on a Raw show.
Blood packet.
I'm pretty sure
No, it was blood packet because it was bleeding here, and then when the Rock smeared it into his hair, it never the water made it look like it was running, but it wasn't coming out of anything.
That disappoints me. Cody,
it was a packet.
Look, a packet. If you're a Rhodes, you do real blood. If you're a Rhodes, we'll get into it. If you look at that, you saw that logo for today's show. Let's see if you can see the gig marks on Dusty.
Yeah, I'll pull it back up here. You caught me on the spot there.
Okay, his hair's covering the gig marks, but
you see a lot. There's a lot there.
There's gig marks there.
Yeah. So that happened.
Like bubble gum.
The Rock, when the camera cut off, he still beat him up and put that on his social media so he can say Attitude Era. Now it drives the question.
People are freaking out, like acting like that's real. That was the thing. Like, oh, the Rock, real? You come on.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Here's the thing with wrestling: people want to believe, and
I love it. And let them. I'm not here to tell them that it wasn't. It was everybody. The Rock really is a giant piece of shit.
Yeah. No, he really beat the hell out of Cody, and just that was
Cody. Cody may be dead. Who knows? Yeah. Cody did sign a new deal
before he died.
Before he died, so that's good for his family. But also, people are saying some promos during Monday Night Raw got a little crazy. CM Punk alluded to Vince. Which is kind of nuts. Honestly, I usually get real bored with long promos in WWE, but I thought Seth, Cody, and Drew was fun. Like
WWE has been firing on a lot of cylinders lately, I think.
Yeah. The whole like what did he say? Oh, I couldn't be impartial to you, both you candy asses or something like that. And then Drew's like, not PG. Like, but people are thinking when the product goes to Netflix, because The Rock said, I can say whatever I want. We're not on Netflix yet. Or someone said it like that, or Punk may have said it. Who knows?
I believe it was Punk.
Yeah. People are thinking though, when we go to Netflix, we may have a new Attitude-ish era or more of an edgier product on the Netflix deal. What do you think with that?
I think that's going to be up to Netflix. Netflix is going to decide what type of show they want. They didn't spend, how much are they spending? $500 million a year for Raw to say, hey, do whatever you want on that show. You know, it's up to you. We're just here to provide you a platform. No, if you bought the show, you could decide. And it's also like a decision that they're going to have to make. And the decision to take a PG was Vince's. So the decision to make it, the
PG thing came about when Linda joined the Trump administration, correct?
No, it was way before that.
When she was running for political office.
It was a little before that too. It was when they signed a deal with Mattel.
Gotcha.
It was when they moved their action figure deal from Jakks Pacific to Mattel. and Mattel did not want to be associated with a risque product. And it was just an overall thing of wanting to be more advertiser friendly. The big thing that they ran against for years, and they still run against, and it's lesser now than it's ever been, but there has always been this stigma about wrestling that it's low rent, the people who watch it are low class, and you would get a fraction of ad money.
Are they wrong?
No. You would get a fraction of the ad money.
Wrestling fans will not pay their rent, but they will get a $600 belt. God damn it!
Yeah, that's exactly, yeah. And they'll try to pawn it. But like Pedro Morales pawned the actual WWF title. But yeah, so they there's this perception, and you would get pennies on the dollar for advertising on wrestling, like a wrestling show with the same audience as a show like soccer or hockey have what are seen as more of an upscale audience. When they're saying this, the advertisers say it's a code for a white audience. That's what they're saying. It's like they don't come out and say it, but they
Tennis.
say, yeah, tennis, exactly, figure skating.
Yeah, very good audience there,
right? So there was a stigma against wrestling fans that's still there, and WWE has done a lot of work in the last 15-ish years to be more advertiser friendly, and it's worked. They have car commercials now. They have, if you remember back in the Attitude Era when they were at their hottest, it was like Stacker 2 and Girls Gone Wild. They were selling gas station speed and softcore pornography. That's what their advertising was during the Attitude Era.
And that's something you have to think of. If you want the Attitude Era back that bad, that's something you need to take into consideration. It's going to cost you money to go more PG or more away from PG or possibly caught. You know what I mean? It's going to be interesting to see.
Right. And I always say this about anything like this. At some point, you got to make a decision. Are you in it to make art? Are you in it to make money? WWE's in it to make money.
Yeah. I'm getting there too. I'm going PG, guys. No more cursing. So watch your fucking mouth, you know? Sorry. I literally have been playing. I just downloaded the show. This is kind of like off wrestling topic, but I've been playing the show, and I played with my buddy from Last Week in Wrestling podcast. Go subscribe to them. Dylan plays the show. I've just downloaded it, turned it on, and played a game against him. I don't want to brag. 5-3. I beat him. Just saying. Beat him.
It's a swear competition.
No, but some errors happened and I cashed in on them. But the show, as a non-baseball fan, I will tip my hat to the show.
Oh, I was like, the show. I got it.
MLB the show.
No, I'm aware. Yeah,
very fun game. Very fun game.
Yeah, I love the show.
But the entire time we were playing, we were talking to each other as that sketch kid. Have you been seeing the sketch? What's going on, brother? He's like a streamer, but he does like in his own version of Trump. Like he squints his eyes and
this is all foreign to me.
Yeah,
this is all international to me.
Yeah, he's very, very popular, but he's very entertaining. He's like a Dr. Disrespect type deal, streamer. He's been all over Barstool and everything. But yeah, we played the show, and if I slip in and out of sketch, or I think that's his name, that's why, because it's stuck in my brain. But yeah, AEW putting on some crazy matches on Wednesday nights. We had Will Ospreay versus Shibata. We had Takashita versus Strickland. They're putting together some interesting matchups over there,
and the ratings keep dropping. That's the concerning thing.
Not insane.
Not saying anything about the quality, but the ratings keep dipping.
Here's a question: is it they're not putting out a bad product, but
they're not. No,
but WWE is hot, and when WWE is hot, tribalism gets really bad. Like
it's not only that, but most people don't tune in to see great wrestling. They tune in to see stars. And I'm not saying Okada, Will Ospreay, I'm not saying these people can't be stars, but to the mainstream American audience, they're not stars because they're stars to the 120,000 people that watch New Japan.
Yeah.
So you got to and it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight, but yeah, it takes time. I hope they get there.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for them. I love that type of wrestling, but
yeah,
I don't know if it has the mainstream potential of what WWE does, because what WWE does is more character driven and more storyline driven, and AEW seems to be getting away from that a little bit. And
we also seen the debut of Jade. Jade makes her not in-ring debut, but she come down and she laid some people up, and
yep.
Now we're getting her in a triple threat match. Her, Naomi, and Bianca will take on Damage Control. So that's super interesting. Trying to think what else cover. We will be doing a Mania pre-show. I'm not sure if BP's joining me. We'll do one possibly maybe Monday or Tuesday. We'll figure it out. I don't know exactly when, but we will be doing one around that time. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. We will cover all things WrestleMania there. Any other wrestling news out that you want to talk about?
Matt Cardona popping in.
Oh, Matt Cardona showed up
last night.
So it's funny. We were talking about Collision. They're like, yo, I think I'm gonna do a Collision stream, and I was like, who cares? Is it live or is it recorded? They're like, oh, it's live. I said, all right, then I'll watch it. And they're like, who's gonna answer Adam Copeland's open challenge? I said, it's gotta be. I said, if I'm gonna say this is why you need to watch AEW now, you need to give someone something exciting to watch. So like my prediction was a former champion of the TNT comes out and challenges. So it makes the champion relevant. He has a banger match. It's like, oh my God, I should have tuned into Collision because that's why. And I thought possibly it was going to be Sammy Guevara making his return and then going after Adam Copeland and giving him a big match.
I don't know if we're going to see Sammy Guevara for a little bit.
Yeah.
Some fences got to be mended first.
Yeah.
Do you remember when he had to go to sensitivity training? Do you remember why he had to go to
the Sasha Banks comments?
Yeah.
Yeah. But from what I was told, him and Sasha did make up for that, or they did reach out to one another, and that has been cool. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
who knows?
You never know.
I don't think so. I think Sasha Banks maybe gave him a half. I accept your apology because I don't think at any point in time she ever thinks she'd ever work with the guy.
Yeah, probably.
But then also, so Matt Cardona comes out. I don't think Matt Cardona is all elite. I think that was him showing up doing.
No,
a show
it's probably a one-off. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was there for that little bit in the pandemic, but that was before he had fully reinvented himself too.
Yeah, we got Lady Frost on television. Her versus Thunder Rosa.
Yeah.
That was cool. She looked really good. I'm a big Lady Frost fan. Yes, Ace Austin did re-sign to TNA. So out of all the hourglasses, the first one ran up and he turned it back over.
Well, so actually that's not true. Some of the hourglasses had a going away party when TNA did their shows at the arena in Philly.
Oh, really?
It looks like the Motor City Machine Guns will be moving on.
Yeah, Motor City Machine Guns will be moving on. I think Jordan Grace will be moving on
to WWE most likely.
And you know who I think might be going with her, and they're really good friends. If you watch on social media, they're always together. I think Masha Slamovich got some eyes on her, and if she doesn't have eyes on her, I think her working Shayna this weekend is gonna get eyes on her,
as they should be.
ESPN put Masha Slamovich in a top 10 wrestlers of the year list, and I think she was the only one on Impact to be put on that list, which is kind of crazy. So I definitely think that's another one. Another one we probably won't see for a while. Max Caster is attempting to get some heel heat and decided to go sexist jokes and making jokes about child trafficking on Twitter.
I thought he was a babyface.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't end well. I will say this on a Max. I don't know anything about that. I'll take your word for it. Max Caster transforming himself, kind of swelling up, cutting up a little bit the abs. So who knows what happens there? But yeah, one last question before we get off current day wrestling I want to pose to you, BP. A lot of contracts are coming up and moving around and going from place to place. Who are some names you think would be good for them to maybe get a new change of scenery, whether it be WWE to AEW, AEW to WWE?
Capital letters underline it 16 times. Ricky Starks.
Ricky, I think being wasted on Collision.
Being wasted in AEW. Wasted.
I think Malachi is going to be a shoe-in to come back. I think Buddy Matthews is going to be a shoe-in to come back. I would not be shocked if Sammy and Kevin at the end of this year, beginning of 2025, I think we might get Kevin Steen and possibly El Generico back to AEW.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know what their contract situation is. Yeah. I know one of the rumblings is maybe Finn Balor makes the jump.
Finn, Drew, Sheamus, Becky, Seth, Kevin, and Sammy, all contracts up at the end of 2020.
I have the feeling that Drew is low-key signed.
Yeah, I do as well. Especially because they're going to put a title on him probably.
Yeah, I think the only way I would think differently is if somehow Damian Priest walks out of WrestleMania with that World Heavyweight title. Then maybe that might sway my opinion on that, but I don't think they would put the rocket on him like the way they have if he wasn't locked down.
Yeah. Well, speaking of rockets, and I'm not talking Sean Smith. Let's talk about one of the biggest rockets in professional wrestling. One of the guys who ran straight to the moon.
We're talking about Owen Hart. What?
A guy who didn't have the abs, didn't have the persona, wasn't as pretty as the rest.
That's two. I gotta catch up here.
Had a little bit of a belly, but it's okay because he was the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Let's get into our topic of the night with the history of Dusty Rhodes.
Oh, how do you fit this into 40 minutes or whatever it is?
You go until you feel you need.
You could do an entire series on Dusty Rhodes. This is one of the most prolific.
We could do episodes on storylines Dusty was in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we are going to compose. And if there is, listen, we do the history of things. But if somebody, one of our listeners are like, hey, can you break down the rivalry between Dusty and insert here? I would love to hear a broke down storyline of like maybe in 2 years we do the history of the bloodline. We revisit the bloodline, or we visit, like, you know what I mean? Like storyline.
Wishful thinking that story will be over in 2 years.
Yeah. We're only in the third. We're only in the fourth inning. We're only in the.
This is why I don't watch baseball. It goes on too friggin' long.
Yes. So we will do our best to give Dusty props, but the biggest thing that we will cover with this one, at least I hope so. I didn't really consult Brian too much, but the notes. But why is Cody's story? What does Dusty have to do with Cody telling his story, and why does he want this title so bad?
The Cody story is a small part of it, but there's a larger implication on the whole thing, especially if you listen to Cody's theme and that whole wrestling has more than one royal family thing. That's a shot across the board at the McMahons. That is precisely what that is. It's not about the Anawais, it's not about the bloodline, it's about the McMahons. It's about the McMahons. So we got to start at the beginning here. We don't start with Dusty Rhodes, even though he did always kind of here. Sit down. You might not. Oh, you're already sitting. But if you're watching or listening, you're not sitting down. Sit down. You're not going to believe this, but a wrestler may have told a tall tale. So Dusty Rhodes always said that it's not uncommon knowledge that his real first name is Virgil Runnels, Virgil Riley Runnels Jr. So that is the origin of the name Virgil, and we'll get into that a little bit. The now recently passed away, unfortunately,
one of the most mocked wrestlers by the McMahons.
Yep. Well, and for good reason. This was their competition. This was they were the McMahons are bloodthirsty, and this was Vince especially, and Linda especially, and this was their big competition in that first run to the top. So he's born in 1945 in Austin, Texas, and he would always say, like, his parents never called him Virgil. They always called him Dusty, because his dad's favorite baseball player was this guy for the then New York Giants, now the San Francisco Giants, Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty Rhodes is not like a household name in baseball. He is a guy he's one of those guys that's known for one thing. And he's known for he played for the New York Giants. He came up and started playing in the majors in 1952, when Dusty Rhodes, the wrestler, would have been about 6 or 7 years old. So if he wasn't called Dusty because of Dusty Rhodes then. But the 1954 World Series was the New York Giants against the heavily favored, then at that point they were called the Cleveland Indians, now they're the Cleveland Guardians. And Dusty Rhodes, the baseball Dusty Rhodes, was known for hitting 2 pinch hit home runs in that World Series that put the Giants over the top. And maybe I'm guessing that Virgil Rhodes liked that name, and that's how he kind of adopted it.
It is a great name. It's an
amazing name. It's an amazing name. But he was a big wrestling fan. He was into other sports. He played baseball. He played football. He played college football. He actually played college football. He's from the Austin area, but he went to Amarillo, Texas, which is the Funk territory, or the Amarillo area, because he went to West Texas State University, which is now called West Texas A&M. And West Texas State, that's an episode. If you remember back on the old show, we did a a thing on Robbinsdale High School,
Robbinsdale, yes.
Minnesota, where like a bunch of different wrestlers went there. So many wrestlers played college football at West Texas State University. The most famous football player that ever came out of there was Mercury Morris. He was I think he's in the NFL Hall of Fame. He's not, but he was part of the undefeated 1972 Miami Dolphins team. But if you look at the wrestling history of West Texas State, it is Tully Blanchard, it is Terry Funk, Ted DiBiase, Terry and Dory Funk Jr., Bruiser Brody, I think I already said Stan Hansen, Tito Santana, Dusty Rhodes, all played college football at this little, not a big powerhouse. But a lot of it was the allure of the Funks, at least for Dusty Rhodes. Like Dusty Rhodes wanted to get into wrestling. He idolized Terry Funk and Dory Funk Jr. So he would like kind of hang around. He would hang around this gas station that Terry, or I'm sorry, I think it was a friend of Dory Funk Jr.'s owned. And he would kind of just pester the Funks whenever they would come around. Like Terry Funk would come around driving a Cadillac. It's like, oh, Dusty would be like, oh, that's a great car. I wish that's a great call, baby. I wish I had one just like it. There's number 3, even though he probably wasn't talking like that back then. So Dusty had it in his head that like he played semi-pro football after college. He did a little bit of stuff like that, but he wanted to be a wrestler. That was where he was gonna make his living. He even worked his way up to Boston and lied about being trained and got into some wrestling stuff. He finally becomes Dusty Rhodes, though, in world class, the Von Erich territory. If anybody's seen the Iron Claw lately, this is where he starts in. And he started as a bad guy. And that's kind of hard to fathom because, and I'll go on, I've said this a lot before, Dusty Rhodes, for my money, my opinion, I know Hulk Hogan drew more money. I know Steve Austin drew more money for a little bit of time. The Rock, John Cena. Dusty Rhodes is the greatest babyface of all time, and it's not close.
Do you think Cody could be?
No. Dusty Rhodes is the greatest babyface of all time.
I know they're chopping half his legs off because the start, but like I think if done right, Cody could be like I literally see Cody as like the next John Cena.
Yeah, I think they've. I don't see it, but then again, John Cena was kind of a heel. Like John Cena got booed. Like he was
it got to the point
he was a giant star.
Because people like it gets to a point when the babyface gets shoved down your throat so much and he always wins, it becomes cool to hate him.
But yeah, it happened to Dusty. Dusty, but Dusty did it to himself too.
Yeah.
So Dusty is in Texas. He's a heel. He's with Gary Hart, and Gary Hart is a Playboy Gary Hart, a famous wrestling manager, who wanted him to change his name to Lonesome Rhodes because that was a character Andy Griffith played. But he's like, no, I'm going to be Dusty.
Why is Hart such a popular name amongst like managers in wrestling? Like, is it just, I don't know, is it like because of Loverboy gimmick or something?
I forget why he got that name. I actually read or listened to the audiobook version of Gary Hart's book at the suggestion of somebody that we're very close with. He's been on the old show before, Jeff. He's like, oh, you should listen to you should read Gary Hart's book.
Okay.
And I don't know, I forget where he got the name Gary Hart, but he was like a pretty boy. Like it was one of those like gay overtone things back when people would get heel heat just because they were being effeminate or what people considered gay at the time. Yeah. So maybe Hart because of hearts or something. I don't know, but whatever it may have been. So Dusty was with him for a while. He winds up really taking off though, and really getting off to a hot start by linking up with Dick Murdoch. And Dick Murdoch and Dusty Rhodes wind up being a very, very successful tag team called the Texas Outlaws. They were wild. They were in and out of the ring. They were wild. They were just brutal heels, almost like a Southern version of the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser. Just, we're going to come in. We're going to beat everybody up. We're going to tear everything down. We're going to leave a trail of destruction in our path. And they went all over the place. They were Texas, Kansas City, Detroit. They went to Australia. They went to, he comes up all the time now because he's such that that invisible hand that controlled everything. Jimsy. They go over to Australia, the original World Championship Wrestling over in Australia, which for a little bit was the biggest money making. It was the best money you could make in wrestling, because they controlled, Jim Barnett and his partners controlled all of wrestling in Australia, and they were making a mint. It was it was the best payoff territory in wrestling. And Jim Barnett had rules. Like, Jim Barnett, this little frail, openly gay man in this business full of big tough guys where homophobia runs rampant, at least in the storylines. Jim Barnett was in control.
Here's a question. Now, wrestling is a different world, right? It's fun. It's not funny, but it's interesting to learn how many people in the world of wrestling now are representations of the LGBTQ community. I didn't know that growing up. Like, growing up, I thought it was a hyper masculine industry, but like now it's like you have people who are non-binary, are gay, lesbian, trans. Like, do you think there was a turning point for that in wrestling, or do you think it's always kind of been there?
It's always been there. And part of it is wrestling was always like, the people who got into professional wrestling, especially then, even more than now, like, you got into professional wrestling by being a bit of an outcast. You got into professional wrestling because you wouldn't fit in anywhere else. Yeah, you had to really want it. Like, they if you didn't have if you didn't have a parent or somebody like that in the business, they tried to keep you out of it.
Yeah,
especially if you were a wrestler. Not so much if you were a promoter, but wrestling, for all of its bluster, for all of its racism and homophobia front facing, and obviously this isn't universal, but especially for the standards of the time, surprisingly tolerant. Like, everybody knew Pat Patterson was gay. Nobody cared. Everybody knew Jim Barnett was gay. Nobody cared. They may have, said awful words to them.
it was also a thing too, where like behind the curtain of wrestling, you had your Sputniks and you had your people who were like, we don't care if you're black, white, green, purple, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We don't care if you're gay, straight, lesbian, whatever it may be. If you can make money out there, we love you. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Like, cared about was green. The only
and if we have to lead into these undertones to go make a buck, let's do it. Like, Roddy Piper did some of the most racist stuff in terms of like wrestling, but he was the first one to be an ally to those people as well.
And a lot of it is because wrestling is very much a fraternity. It's like, and especially then in the kayfabe days where it was a closed business, like, you traveled, like, even look now, like, if you look now at all of the people in wrestling who seem that it's not, I mean, it's more open now than it's ever been, but look at how many wrestlers date other wrestlers. Like, it's because it's still a fairly close fraternity. They spend a lot of time together, especially if you're in the same company or traveling together. It's not a coincidence. This
is why content creators, pro tip, don't talk shit about wrestlers on your content, because they're all friends.
Yeah.
Just silly. Yeah,
it's a club, and you're not in it. Yeah,
it's okay to not respect or like the character, but when you start attacking them personally and saying that as a person they're this, but then you're like, but my favorite wrestler is this, and I don't know why he doesn't answer my DMs. There's a reason.
A little busy, probably. A little busy.
Yeah.
So, Dusty and
I'm just saying on an independent level, like, when someone's like, oh, I hate Ricky Price, and then like, how come this guy doesn't message me? Because him and Ricky are buddies. Like, and that buddy probably heard you talk about.
Who the hell hates Ricky Price? Ricky Price is like the nicest guy.
I mean, I don't understand it either. The guy's a gem. I don't think I'd ever, like, even if you at one point didn't like him, that's probably the stupidest thing ever.
But anyway, so how could somebody not like Ricky Price? But
real quick, do you see Ricky and Junie's fucking bit?
Yeah, I wasn't there when it was filmed. I was elsewhere.
But dude, as soon as we both seen Ricky and then we seen Junie, we're like, we need to put those two together.
Yeah. It didn't work out for them in the Stampede, though. It didn't work out for them, unfortunately, in the Stampede.
TBA. I think that's going to be a team, two people you need to keep an eye out when it comes to making really good wrestling content and be wrestlers.
100% on that. So, where we last left Dusty Rhodes, he was in Florida. We're getting way ahead of myself there. He is in Australia with Dick Murdoch, and Jim Barnett has some tight rules. He wants all of his wrestlers to be a strong representative of his company. He doesn't want wrestlers out there. He wants you to be dressed nicely. He doesn't want you, doing things that are unbecoming of an upstanding citizen. And here are the Texas Outlaws. They're dressed like they just stepped off the farm, and their jeans and their Western shirts and their cowboy hats, and they're spitting tobacco juice on the ground and getting in the bar fights. And Jim Barnett catches wind of this, jobs them out around the horn, and they're sent back to the United States. So they're out of a job in the big money territory. They wind up in the AWA as the villainous Texas Outlaws, getting the fights with like the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser and other teams like that. Billy Robinson and whomever he's teaming with at the time. This is a little before Greg Gagne was a wrestler, but Dusty and Murdoch would sometimes have heel versus heel matches too. And one of the heel versus heel matches they had was against a great tag team, one of the all-time great tag teams, Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens, who were the pretty boy heels, and then you had the tough wild heels. And usually when you have those two teams and they're both heels, or those two acts and they're both heels, the one that's a little bit more of a gruff fighter winds up being the de facto baby face. Mm-hmm. So even though they were all heels, Dick Murdoch and Rhodes are the baby faces. And this is where, even in the early 70s, mid 70s, you start to get a little germination of what Dusty Rhodes is going to be. Because when they're doing the thing where like, okay, you're kind of going to be the baby faces for the night, not full baby face, but you're going to be a little good. You would have those things where it's just a little bit of, they literally would call it and this is the term of the time, the black baby face comeback, like what Thunderbolt Patterson would do or Bobo Brazil would do. And it's a lot of what Dusty would do later. Dusty took a lot from Thunderbolt Patterson, who's going to the Hall of Fame this week, where he would do a dance that would be considered like a jive type dance. And he, like, usually when a black wrestler would do this, they would end it with a headbutt. Dusty would end it with the big elbow that he would become very known for.
The spin up.
Yeah. And so
Dusty becomes more animated.
Yeah. And at this point, one of the people that's training in the AWA at this point in the early to mid 70s is the guy who would go on to become Ric Flair.
Who'd he ever beat?
This becomes a very famous thing where Ric Flair originally wanted to be called Ramblin' Ricky Rhodes. He wanted to be the cousin of Dusty Rhodes, and it just never happened. Because Ric Flair was a lot bigger back then. He was almost 300 pounds. He kind of looked like Dusty.
Yeah, so he was a thick boy.
Yeah, he wanted to be Ramblin' Ricky Rhodes, but it doesn't happen. And Rhodes winds up going to where he finds himself. He becomes the Dusty Rhodes everybody knows. He goes to Florida. He goes to Florida with quite possibly the most respected booker of all time, Eddie Graham. And in Florida is where Dusty Rhodes winds up becoming the American Dream. But initially, it's a heel gimmick. The American Dream is at first a heel gimmick. It is, I am the American Dream. I am what you want to be and you will never be. And he comes out in like fur coats and talk about driving a Cadillac and I'm richer than you. I have everything you're never going to have.
So essentially he's Ric Flair before Ric Flair?
Pretty much. Buddy Rogers was already doing it at that point.
Yeah.
But it's more about flaunting like everything he's got. So yeah, it's a lot like that Buddy Rogers, Ric Flair, cocky type heel.
Yeah.
But they do realize after a while, we've got something. This guy should be a babyface. This guy can connect with that crowd. And they subtly do it. He gets a shot against Jack Briscoe, who was the big babyface at the time in Florida. Jack Briscoe was the first Florida regular to win the NWA title. Jack Briscoe was the local hero, and he comes back to defend against Dusty Rhodes, and he has to kind of cheat. He has to do some things that you wouldn't want to do to try to save his title. And eventually Dusty gets frustrated and throws him over the top rope, and the crowd kind of turns. The crowd kind of turns to Dusty. They maybe get a little sick of Jack Briscoe. He's been around for a while. So finally, they make a decision. Dusty's being managed by Gary Hart again. He's teaming a lot with this longtime Florida heel, Pac Song, against Eddie Graham and his son, Mike Graham. And eventually Pac Song turns on Dusty. And Mike Graham is trying to go in there to save him. He's like a 23-year-old kid at this point. Eddie's like, no, let them fight it out. Dusty's done everything to us. Don't save him. Finally, Mike Graham comes in to save Dusty Rhodes, and they're like the big baby face act. And this is where it's a supernova. Dusty Rhodes is the biggest thing in Florida. He's the biggest baby face probably in the United States, if not the world, to the point where your big traveling attractions at this point. And he was mainly in Florida, but he would travel around a bit. And the biggest traveling attractions at this point are the NWA World Champion, Andre the Giant, and Dusty Rhodes. Are your
real quick question? You said about biggest or best baby faces. Do you think Bruno's up there?
Yeah, I mean Bruno. The thing I will say for Bruno that I'll say for Dusty that I don't know if I would say for Bruno. I don't know if Bruno could have done it everywhere. And
Gotcha.
here, and same thing for like a John Cena, Hulk Hogan. Well, Hulk Hogan did do it in AWA, so he probably could have done it anywhere. But Dusty Rhodes, that act traveled, I think, better than Bruno would.
And even when you try to strip him and make him something different, he still found a way to get over in WWE, even when he wasn't kind of supposed to.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And so, and that's the thing, because Dusty wound up, because he would take that jive talk. He would take that. A lot of it was patterned after Muhammad Ali, Thunderbolt Patterson, people like that. He would dance.
Backlund didn't have the charisma.
Yeah, no, Backlund. No. Backlund was.
Backlund didn't find the character until he went crazy.
Right. No, Backlund was an incredible wrestler. Backlund did a great job keeping that territory afloat, but he was never that transcendent, ultra charismatic.
Backlund's so good at being crazy. I don't know if he's crazy or not.
Backlund was basically WWF's answer to Vern Gagne in the AWA.
Even meeting him, there's times where he would like slip out and he'd be like, "Yo, guys, like, I appreciate everything you're doing here and like doing this." And then he's like,
I have no bad words to say about Bob Backlund.
Yo, I love him. But like a whole time I'm like, is he little like, or is he doing his thing? Like,
you never know. Like, he's from that old school. He might be working a little bit.
Dude, do you think he worked us when he got in the ring and did the headstand for no reason?
Maybe. What do you mean by working us?
Like, it's something a crazy person would do. Like, he got in the ring.
That's a very Bob Backlund thing. He would do the Harvard step test. He was always all about showing off his feats of athleticism. And he still does it.
Nobody was paying attention. Like Bob. So real quick, Bob Backlund story. We're at a meet and greet. Bob Backlund gets up from his table, and it's like, I think it's early too. It's like, I don't even think the doors have opened yet. Like it's like a weird moment at the con where it's like dead. And Bob just gets in the ring, and we're like, is he gonna like run the ropes? Like, is Bob Backlund? And we're like, everyone just pays attention. He goes, "Excuse me, everyone, I need your attention." And then he gets in like a yoga pose, and then tries to put his knees on he's on a headstand, and then he puts his knees to his elbows and tries to extend his legs and falls and tries it like 2 or 3 times, and then like kind of gets it, and everyone claps, and then he just goes, "Thank you," and then just walked back to his table. And
he got it pretty well. Let's give Bob Backlund some.
But I mean, it was so random. It was so random. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I derailed.
Especially for a man who at the time was like 72 years old. God.
I loved him. He was choking people out.
Amazing. Bob Backlund was great.
Everybody got put in a headlock. Like when we took a photo with him, I didn't know if he was.
You get the crossface chicken wing with Bob Backlund.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was. But so even that age, still working.
Yeah. So the 1970s in Florida is when Dusty Rhodes really comes into his own. And the thing that I really think makes him transcend a guy as a babyface like a Bruno. Bruno had mass appeal. Bruno was incredibly charismatic. Bruno had his big stronghold in the Northeast for a reason. Everybody loved Bruno, but he was mainly for the Italian crowd.
Yeah.
Like he was, and the Pittsburgh crowd, because he was like adopted Pittsburgh burger. So like he was mainly for the Italian crowd. Pedro Morales was mainly for the Puerto Rican crowd. Ivan Putski was mainly for the Polish crowd. Like that was Vince McMahon Sr., Vincent J. McMahon's whole bread and butter. He had these ethnic baby faces, and then a lot of his heels were Irish, because the cops that would give all the other people crap were usually Irish. Like that's how Hulk Hogan got his name, because Hogan is an Irish name.
Yeah.
And he gave Vince J. McMahon gave him that name when he was a a heel in the WWF. And Dusty did a lot of traveling, and his whole thing was always a chase for the NWA title, but Eddie Graham never wanted him to win the title long term, because if he won the title long term, he would have to travel with it, and Eddie Graham always wanted him to stay in Florida to a certain extent, but he would have his trips other places. And the one that's going to really tie into what we're talking about now and finishing the story and all that is in 1977, when superstar Billy Graham is the WWF World Champion, and he's a transition champion. He's there to transition the belt from Bruno Sammartino to Bob Backlund, but he was a transition champion even though he was champion for like 10, 11 months. He was told literally before he won the title, "You're winning the title from Bruno on this day. You're losing it to Backlund on this day at the Garden." Like, he knew, even though it was about a year out, when he was losing the title in the Who. That's how far out they booked the WWF back then. But one of the stops along the way, the biggest stop along the way for Dusty Rhodes, or for Billy Graham, was Dusty Rhodes. It was a program, a 2 or 3 match program in the Garden in the fall of 1977, where Rhodes and Graham went at it. And that's when you had that promo in the Hamburg Fieldhouse where he's talking about uniting all the races and stuff like that. And that was Dusty's appeal, where Bruno was just for the Italians. This guy was just for this guy. This, not just for, but mainly for this. Like, Dusty Rhodes had that universal appeal. Everybody loved Dusty Rhodes, especially had that crossover appeal to black fans.
Yeah,
because he didn't look down on them. He was one of them. He's like, he would talk about, wanting brown sugar before that was like socially acceptable. When interracial couples were something people would shudder at the thought of, Dusty Rhodes was saying it was okay, and all that stuff. And so the big thing that Cody talks about, like the title, like his dad could never really secure, was he came close against superstar Billy Graham, but never won it. He beat him by count out. He lost a Texas death match. It was always like he got this close to beating superstar Billy Graham, but he couldn't do it. He did finally win the NWA title, but it was a very short run because you had to be a heel. He wasn't seen as a good enough worker to really carry the NWA title around the country, and mainly because he wanted to stay in Florida. But this was back in that the money is in the chase mindset. A babyface can't be a long-term champion. That's how the NWA operated, and so that kind of pigeonholed Dusty. And he had his run in Georgia a little bit. That's where we talked about the Ole Anderson feud. But finally, he leaves Florida in 1983, and he joins up with Jim Crockett Promotions around the time of the first Starrcade. And he's coming in not just to be their top babyface because they're going to turn Ric Flair heel, but he's also coming in to be the booker. He's also coming in to be the, to a degree, didn't Dusty get his promo stuff from Thunderbolt Patterson? To a degree, he got a lot of his mannerisms in the ring from Thunderbolt Patterson, and a little bit of the promo stuff, a little bit of it was Dusty himself. A lot of it was Muhammad Ali. If you're going to give any one person credit of having the main influence over Dusty's promos, it's Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
So with Jim Crockett Promotions, Dusty is now in the driver's seat. He is booking, and his big program was with Ric Flair, and they do a big thing at the first, not the first Starrcade, the second Starrcade, the $1 Million Challenge. The whole thing is the winner's going to get $1 million. It's Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes with Joe Frazier as the referee, and Flair wins. It's a controversial finish where Frazier stops it because of a minor cut, and it was supposed to set up a match with Dusty Rhodes and Joe Frazier, but Joe Frazier got cold feet. So then we have there's an infamous angle in 1985 where Ric Flair says he's going to help Dusty take out the Russians. Like, we have our differences, but I'm an American, you're an American, let's take out these Russians. And it winds up being where the Four Horsemen are formed, because as soon as they get in that cage, it's the same way Uncle Ole did. We talked about it in the Ole episode.
Yeah.
As soon as they get in that cage, he turns on him, and the Russians, the Andersons, and Ric Flair all beat down Dusty Rhodes. And then they link up with Tully Blanchard, and the Four Horsemen are formed, and they're off to the races, because now the war is on, and Vince McMahon is stomping out every territory, but the one nut he can't crack is the old Jim Crockett Promotions Mid-Atlantic territory, which the NWA, other than them, gets so eroded, gets so beaten down. Florida dries up. World Class goes off and does its own thing. Mid-South goes off and does its own thing. Harley Race jumps to the WWF. AWA is becoming a shell of its former self. Like, basically, Jim Crockett Promotions, for all intents and purposes, in the late 80s, is the NWA. And Dusty Rhodes is basically running the ship. Jim Crockett's the money guy. Jim Crockett's the guy who signs the paychecks. Dusty Rhodes is running the company. He is running the day-to-day wrestling operations. He's booking. He's arranging the tours. It is his vision. He is in control. And that is why there was such resentment from the McMahons to Dusty Rhodes, because it wasn't only that Dusty.
It wasn't just Jim beating them. It was Dusty.
Yeah, no, they would. Yeah, it was like, if like Crockett was the guy in, like, the Crockett family owned it, but Dusty was the guy in charge. And Dusty was the guy who, it was like, we're fighting war with Dusty. It wasn't we're fighting war with Jim Crockett. There was no gimmick making fun of Jim Crockett. There was Virgil.
Yeah.
Virgil was there just to make fun of Dusty Rhodes. Akeem was the African Dream that did the jive dance and came out to a song called Jive Soul Bro, is to make fun of Dusty. It's all their target is Dusty, not Crockett.
I loved it though when I was a kid. I didn't know it was a rib. I was like, I love the American Dream. This African Dream guy's funny.
It's just like when when they had the Monday Night War in the 90s, and for that 2.5 years, WCW was kicking them from one end of the country to the other. WCW was dominating them, has them on the ropes. Vince McMahon never had the couldn't swallow his pride to say Eric Bischoff is beating me. It was always Ted Turner. It was always Ted Turner's beating me. Ted Turner didn't have other than signing the paychecks and approving the budgets, Ted Turner didn't have a damn thing to do with WCW.
Yep.
It was Bischoff. Bischoff was beating him. But that's not about Dusty. So Crockett's going really well. They have a really hot 85, a really hot 86. They're not as nationally spread as Vince is. Vince is getting into Chicago. He's getting all the way out to like California.
Quick segue. We talked about Ole. Where does Dusty rank as one of the best promoters of all time?
Bookers, you mean?
Bookers, yeah.
When we on that episode we were talking about the Mount Rushmore. He's one of my top 4.
Yeah.
I forget what I settled on. It was Eddie. I believe I settled on Eddie Graham, Dusty Rhodes, Vince McMahon, and I don't remember who I had as my 4th.
Yeah. Is Bishop and Heyman's got to be close, right?
Heyman, I respect. Bischoff, I think had one really good idea, the NWO.
Yeah.
And let's sign all the old WWF guys who think they're done, but they aren't.
I mean, NWO, Sting, and DDP, I would say like that was like the heart and blood of WCW.
DDP wasn't that big. I like DDP, but DDP wasn't that big.
Goldberg
was bigger than DDP. Goldberg was bigger than DDP.
I'll give you it, but I don't like it. I agree, but I don't like it. DDP was probably the closest person that got me to watch WCW.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Everybody likes who they like. So
DDP versus the Flock is what
really? Okay.
Yeah. When they were on a morning television show, like a Good Morning America, and the Flock jumped DDP. I was like, wow. They just did on Good Morning, like a morning radio. Like I was like, all right, I like this DDP guy. Like he's something. And then Raven talked to that grunge kid in me. I was like, I like this story. I was into it. A lot of the
Raven character came from Raven. So
yeah.
a lot of that credit goes to Raven himself. And so yes, to be honest, Bischoff got the NWO concept from the angle in New Japan. Yeah, he was over there for a New Japan versus UWFI thing, which was literally UWFI was a promotion that had existed. It wasn't like it was kind of like when WWF bought WCW and then they did the invasion, except it was done much better in Japan because people really believed it was two companies that didn't like each other, and so that seat is in there. Herb Abrams just missed the Mount Rushmore. I'm trying to rack my brains on who I had as the other guy, and I can't think of it.
Yeah, I don't recall either. Go back and listen to last week's episode. We do the history of Ole Anderson.
Off the top of my head, maybe Bill Watts.
It might have been Bill Watts.
Off the top of my head, maybe if I had to be pressed to think of somebody right now, Bill Watts.
And thank you, MA, for hanging out. First time I seen you in the chat, so I appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe and check out some other content. We'd love to have you hang out and talk some more. For the people listening to the audio platforms later on, we are always live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and X. YouTube is the hotspot. That's where everyone, for the most part, chats and hangs out. So if you want to hang out in the conversation, we are live every Sunday night around 9 o'clock, unless something crazy happens and we let you know we're not doing it that week. Quick plug there. All right, let's get back to Dusty.
And next week, probably not. It's going to be the WrestleMania.
Yeah, next week, no tornado tag. Yeah.
So Dusty, like most bookers, and I think you're kind of seeing this little in AEW to kind of tie it to modern day. Like, it's hard to, especially if you're booking like weekly television. It's one thing if you're booking an indie, you have to do one show a month. But if you're booking weekly TV and arena shows and all this stuff, eventually you run out of good material. And from like 86, 85, 86, 87, Crockett had such a great roster, but it was the same people for years and years and years, and people got burnt out. And their money was, and Vince was doing the Vince stuff of, oh, you can't run Starrcade. If you run Starrcade, you're not going to get WrestleMania. You have to have the Survivor Series instead. You can't do both. So and then they had to give people guaranteed contracts so they wouldn't jump to Vince. And Crockett and especially Dusty got big heads. Dusty thought he was John Wayne. John Wayne was his idol. And they bought this big office in Texas that they didn't need. They started flying around on private jets, and eventually, didn't take long, 1988, Jim Crockett has to sell. Jim Crockett has to sell to Ted Turner and Turner TBS. And Dusty's still there as the head booker, but now you have that corporate oversight. Jim Crockett just let Dusty go. And then when Turner comes in, we have to tone down the blood. We can't say foreign object. Like, Turner had this whole thing from CNN, like, you can't say the word foreign. Instead of saying foreign, say international. So Dusty would joke and have people call it an international object. If you ever heard the term international object, that's where it comes from.
A Dustyism.
And Dusty kind of outright defies them. In late 1988, Dusty has them do in very late 1988, Dusty has them do an angle because he's turning the Road Warriors heel. He's turning Hawk and Animal heel. And they have him turn on Dusty by, those spiked shoulder pads they had? They had Dusty Rhodes get spiked in the eye with a shoulder pad. And his eye, and obviously blades like run under the eye. One thing we totally overlooked is his legendary feud with Terry Funk. Terry Funk, they did a thing where like Dusty beat him in a lights out match by blinding him in the eye. And Funk like literally bladed his eye and had a droopy eye for the rest of his life. There was a thing where Dusty had an angle where he got attacked and his face got paralyzed. So he had his face get shot up with Novocaine. So he literally comes on the TV in Florida with a droop, like a half paralyzed face, to sell an angle.
Pro wrestling, baby.
But this is a step too far. And there's also like Dusty's already on thin ice when he books that, because Dusty and Ric Flair at this point are not getting along. Rick doesn't like the way he's being booked. He's the champion, but he's always booked to lose. He's always booked to look weak. It's cheapening the title. He thinks that's a big reason why they're losing, because they don't see the title as important, because even though Flair's a champion, whenever the title's not on the line, Flair's losing.
Yeah.
And Dusty's like, well, I'm the boss. You're going to lose if I say you're going to lose. And Flair wants to leave. So for Dusty's original plan for the main event of Starrcade 98 is Ric Flair against Rick Steiner for the NWA title in a cage. Rick Steiner wins in 5 minutes. And the reason he picks Rick Steiner's over. Like, Rick Steiner's very popular, but he's not like world champion popular at this point. But Rick Steiner has a reputation for being the toughest guy in the locker room. And it's basically, you're getting that cage with Rick Steiner, and either you're going to let him win it or he's going to take it from you. It's up to you.
Yeah. It's go do your job, or we're gonna make sure you have to do the job. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Rick Steiner's the guy who's going to come in as like the shooter, the policeman. And the thing that makes this an issue is when Ted Turner buys buys Jim Crockett Promotions, Ted Turner had a favorite wrestler, and it wasn't Dusty Rhodes. It was Ric Flair. The main guy he wanted to make sure he took care of was Ric Flair, because Ric Flair was ready to leave. There were rumors even before that Ric Flair was going to wrestle Randy Savage at the first SummerSlam in 1988 before they did the Mega Powers and the Mega Bucks. But Ted Turner made sure it didn't happen. He made sure Ric Flair was taken care of. So after the strife with Flair and after the spike angle, Dusty Rhodes is fired. Dusty Rhodes is fired.
And Sting is involved at this point in time too, right?
Yes, Sting and Rick Steiner both came over in '87 when they bought the UWF, which was Bill Watts' promotion. He was doing really well. The economy in that area in the Deep South, because it was so tied to the oil industry, tanked, and he couldn't compete with Vince and Crockett. And that was an opportunity for Dusty to bring in some new blood and to revitalize things. But he basically buried the UWF. Like, usually Usually when a wrestling company buys another wrestling company, they don't make the company they bought look that good. If you've ever noticed. If you ever noticed, like, Ring of Honor, if they ever did a Ring of Honor versus AW feud, it wouldn't last that long. Like, basically, there are no Ring of Honor stars except for people they don't want to put on AW.
Yeah. Or it would be one of those. It'd be one of those things where they were used to be ROH stars, but now they're AEW stars.
Right. Ring of Honor has basically become AW Dark.
Have you seen that they're
AW Dark is Ring of Honor.
They're re-releasing ROH figures, but they're doing like old Kenny under ROH, old Claudio with like the jacket. Like they're doing like a whole new line of ROH figures, but they're starting with the classics, like classic Daniel, classic Kenny, classic Claudio. It's pretty fun. Yeah.
Awesome. So Dusty gets fired. Ric Flair wins the power struggle. Dusty tried to bring back a Florida territory. At this point, unfortunately, Eddie Graham had passed. Very, very sad circumstances. He lost the battle with depression, essentially. And then, so Mike Graham, Eddie's son, and Steve Kern, who was a longtime star there, they wind up starting, they wanted to basically revive Championship Wrestling from Florida, but they couldn't use the name, so they called the Professional Wrestling Federation. And they have just basically whoever's not tied down to like WCW or AWA or WWF at the time. Terry Funk's there, Bam Bam Bigelow's there, the Nasty Boys, because Dusty's sister-in-law and Jerry Sagg's sister-in-law or sisters. And then Dustin Rhodes is getting a start there. Scott Hall's there. Very young Mike Awesome and Diamond Dallas Page. Dusty's other brother-in-law, the Big Steel Man, who would go on to become Tugboat, is there. And it was not long. Like it wasn't long before Dusty kind of saw the writing on the wall. This isn't going to work. Like we're trying to do something he can't do anymore. So it wasn't long after. It was only about 5 months in that Dusty's like, I guess I got to swallow my pride and call Vince. And that's when Dusty comes in 1989 with the polka dots. Shortly after, we just covered WrestleMania 5 a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was between WrestleMania 5 and that SummerSlam. So like the spring of 1989 that you start seeing the vignettes for the American Dream, doing all these odd jobs. It's Dusty Rhodes wearing no shirt, and he's got like a butcher's apron on, talking about Americana. I forget what it was, Americana meat market. You can beat my prices, but you can't beat my meat. That's 4. And he was the common man. And he was going to dress up in polka dots. They brought in Sapphire, who was this old fan from Kansas City in her mid-50s, an older heavyset black woman to dance with Dusty and all that.
Wasn't there a bit with Sapphire too? Like she was supposed to be a spoof of somebody else, like the name Sapphire or something?
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, I thought there was supposed to be like possibly a rib to that.
Not to my knowledge, but even though it was all pretty much set up to make him look like a fool, Dusty got it over. You couldn't stop him. Dusty got it over. Dusty got it over. He was one of their top baby faces at that point. To the point that they would push him. Like they were never going to let him get close to Hogan level or Ultimate Warrior level or anything like that. But he was very popular and he was doing well. And then they have him in 1990. He's there for about a year and a half. In 1990, they have him really, really, really put over strong. This new guy called The Undertaker. And shortly after that, Vince is like, yeah, we're going to let you go soon. We're going to finish you up here. And he actually teams with Dustin for a little bit. Dustin Rhodes' first WWF appearances are in late 1989, early 1990.
Wasn't Vince also telling Dusty at this point you had to lose weight, and he was making restrictions? Like he's like trying to like force him to like change up a lot about himself and giving him tasks that were not impossible, but like this guy's been a heavier set dude his whole life, and now he's working you, and he has to drop 40, and like.
More than likely, more so than that, I think it was like it wasn't Vince's ideal of a wrestler. His ideal of a wrestler, especially a babyface, was a guy who was in excellent condition. And Dusty was in his mid-40s at this point. And that's like, Vince wanted to move away from Hogan when he hit 40. Like Vince was all about, like Vince moved away from Randy Savage. That's why Randy Savage went to WCW. He still had about like 6-7 good years in the ring ahead of him, and Vince was like, no, you're too old. I want to make you an announcer. That's why Savage left. He knew he still had something in the tank. He never wanted to leave.
Yeah.
That, and obviously they paid him.
I think they were saying too that he was cool with being an announcer. He was okay with taking that role, but he said he wanted to do one more story, and that one angle he wanted to do was with Shawn Michaels
For the Intercontinental title, yeah.
And they said no, and he's like, well, then I'm out.
Yeah.
Could you imagine what that match could have been?
It would have been, because there were two guys that like to have everything kind of meticulously planned out. They
Yeah.
would have been right up each other's alley. So Dusty winds up coming back to WCW in 1991 as the booker. Dusty comes in and he has an interview segment called the Bull Drop In. They brought him back as the booker, but one of the things he was really, really bad with late in his run, even if he wasn't the champion, back in his late in his run with Crockett, even if he wasn't the champion, it was a Dusty Rhodes show. He was not going to cede the spotlight to anybody, and it really stifled the growth of like other baby faces, like a Sting, like a Lex Luger when he turned babyface, a Nikita Koloff, because nobody could outshine Dusty on the babyface side, and fans were starting to get a little sick of it after a while, and that just happens. No matter how good of a babyface you are, that's going to happen. And then when they comes back to WCW in 1991, they're like, well, you're gonna be a behind the scenes guy. You're not gonna wrestle full time anymore. And he would wrestle like very occasionally, but he was booking for a little while until that's when Dustin comes in. But after a while, it's not really working out. So they and then Ric Flair's coming back, and they weren't at each other's throats like they were, but they really, really, really just want Dusty to become an announcer. And that's kind of how he ends his run in WCW, is mainly as an announcer, maybe as a, and that's another thing that's very memorable. If you ever think of Dusty Rhodes as an announcer, he wasn't a great color commentator like a Jesse Ventura or even like a Bobby Heenan, like everything was eloquent, but he had just these little things that are so memorable, like talking about getting the plunder, going to the pay window, baby, clubber in, he got a bicycle, like all those things are so memorable for. That's 5, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's something. And then I think his last big match in WCW probably was a War Games from 1994, where it's him, Dustin, and the Nasty Boys against Terry Funk, Colonel Parker, Bunkhouse Buck, and Dick Slater. And that's the or Arn Anderson, not Dick Slater. And that's the that's kind of the last big thing from Dusty Rhodes. He had a few things with ECW after WCW closed, just because he joined the NWO. Yeah, he joined the NWO for a little bit as a heel manager. And then
too sweet, baby, too sweet.
6. All right, we're very close.
You have to say sweet as Dusty.
We're very close here. Well, actually, as while WCW is still going, he left and did a few matches with ECW. He came back toward the end of WCW. In fact, one of the last angles they did was when Ric Flair was the president of WCW. They had a match where if somebody lost, Ric Flair would have to kiss Dusty's ass. And so literally after they lose, they grab Ric Flair, and Dusty's actually about to pull his pants down, but they drag him down the aisle, and they have a horse or a donkey at the very end by the entrance, and they rub Flair's face in the back of the donkey, and it says Dusty's ass on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously WCW ends, and then Dusty tried to bring back like an Indian Florida Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. He would do like the occasional interviews, appearances here and there. He did some stuff with TNA very early on. He was actually booking TNA for a little bit. In between Vince Russo stints, he booked TNA for about a year or two before they got TV. He would do the occasional indie shots. And then finally in 2005, he does sign that Legends deal, and he's a creative consultant with WWE. And this is kind of the last act of Dusty Rhodes. And I know this, let's tie it back to the whole WrestleMania thing, because finishing the story for Cody is like, yeah, I'm going to win the title that nobody in my family ever could. Dustin couldn't get it. My dad couldn't get it, but I'm going to get the WWE title. And it's all about like, yeah, wrestling does have more than one royal family. There's no McMahon's involved in WWE anymore, but there sure is a Rhodes, and he's going to win the main event of WrestleMania this year. That's the story.
Well, here's the thing too, and maybe I'm overthinking it or overusing it, but like, and I know there's a whole story in there where Dusty and Dustin fall out, where there's like, as father and son, they are not cool with each other. That's a whole other story that we can go into.
Dustin and Cody had very different experiences. Dustin grew up when Dusty was traveling across the country. Dustin's mom and Dusty broke up. Cody had Dusty around a lot more.
Yeah.
But by the end, Dusty and Dustin had gotten very close.
Yes, but here's where when you kind of talk about Rhodes has more than one family. Just
Wrestling.
as good as just as good as Dusty was as a babyface, and as Dusty was as a character, and Dusty was as everything, Dusty shaped a generation of wrestling.
Well, yeah,
and that's what we're kind of getting into. Dusty becomes one of the de facto trainer of NXT. He's
not
one of the
not so much the trainer, not
the character.
yeah.
He's heavily involved. He's one of the main dudes at NXT where he's helping with behind the scenes and doing stuff there.
Right.
And a lot of today's talent that we now know, that we love and respect, like your Roman Reigns and your Baileys and your Charlotte, like a lot of them like almost see Dusty as a father figure. And if you ask them who made them who they are, we're Rhodes kids. Like, so they weren't blood, but a lot of people respect Dusty because he created that next generation that we're watching today.
Yeah, Dusty's big job in first FCW and then NXT was he would teach promo class. Who better to have you learn promos than the American Dream, right? He would teach promo class. Like the in-ring training was mainly done at that point by Bill DeMott, later by Matt Bloom, and Sarah Mato, and
Regal
are there now. Regal, and a bunch of those people. They have a whole Steve Carino's down there. They have
there's people who you don't even realize are down there that are down there.
Yeah.
Like not too long ago, Lindsay popped in to help some people. You know
right.
what I mean? Like Brian Kendrick pops in and out to help people. Like NXT is a cool place to get. You never know. It's almost like being at the Worldwide Dojo, like when you're at a wrestling school like that, or Catch Point, or like those schools where you're like, yeah, we're here training with Cheeseburger, and then Delirious is here today, or someone from Japan came over to do a bit and they're staying at the dojo, and then we get to train with them. Like it's a cool spot, like the NXT training facility.
Yeah, there's always somebody popping in. But yeah, some of those people, especially like a Bailey, especially some of the people who became writers, they really did like that. And that is the finishing of Dusty's story, of really just imparting that Dusty Rhodes wisdom onto a whole new generation. Because unfortunately, he had been sick for a little bit, and somebody else's birthday, I believe, too, or the day that somebody else died. John Wayne. I don't know if he died on John Wayne's birthday or the same day John Wayne died. It's one or the other. But Dusty did, toward the end, Dusty, he had always had like a few health issues later on. Obviously was always a very large guy. But toward like the later part of his 60s, he started losing a lot of weight very quickly. And everybody would say, Dusty, are you okay? What's going on? He's like, yeah, my doctors are telling me that I should get in better shape. I got to take some of this weight off. But what nobody really knows is he is suffering. He was having kidney issues for a long time, but he would also gotten stomach cancer. I believe it was some sort of cancer he wound up contracting. I believe it was stomach cancer. And then he was getting ready to go to a promo class, I believe. And there's going to be some kind of event that night to dedicate this old building. There was a big building for Florida Championship Wrestling from Florida, and a lot of like JJ Dillon, a lot of these other guys are flying in for it. Dusty gets up on June 10th, 2015, to go to promo class, and he collapses. Or it's the day before he collapses. He goes to the hospital very quietly. Never told anybody how sick he was. Didn't want sympathy. Didn't want anybody feeling bad for him. And the next day, his kidneys are failing, and he passes on June 10th, 2015. And they say when people got off the plane, they thought there was something happened to Pedro Morales because he was like very sick. But it's like, no, it's Dusty. And that was one of the more monumental. Like everybody knew Dusty said he would have. It's sad to put it this way, but everybody would have loved. They said Dusty would have loved how much adulation and praise and attention he got. Yeah, after he had passed, just because people know there is the professional wrestling looks, and forget the effects his children are having now, and the people he's taught. Just him as an in-ring performer, professional wrestling is so much different today without Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, it's one thing to be the legend, and this is where I kind of get some heat, and I get a little angry with like things Brett may say, or things that like Jim Cornette does and says is like, there's one thing to complain about the business, and then there's another way to give back to the business and help it grow. And I think Dusty's a perfect example of that. He set a tone that I think a lot of people, like your Regals, like I think Regal takes it very seriously, but I think Dusty is like the forefront of that. And to go back to a company to essentially make that company the where it is now. Like if you look at WWE, they don't get just bought because Vince is a great businessman or Vince is a great thing. You're only as good as your talent. And that crop of talent that comes out of NXT that now becomes what we all know as WWE is because of Dusty Rhodes. So
Yeah,
like
big footprint on it. Yeah.
at the end of the day, like Dusty was mocked and picked on and made fun of and was everything to buy a company. And in the long run, at the very end, when you say it all, there's Dusty Rhodes Classics and all this, the Rhodes family won. Like Cody goes out, starts the revolution of what we now know as like Cody Sparks by leaving WWE, goes to Japan, goes to ROH, uplifts the business and works with everybody and makes wrestling better. The indie scene pops off because of people like Cody Rhodes. AEW starts and like wrestling is what we know right now is largely because of the Rhodes name.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny because we didn't really bring him up, but the in my opinion, the best like in between the ropes wrestler of the family is Dustin.
Yeah. Do you think we get Dustin at Mania? Do you think they let Dusty go over?
I don't know. That would be incredible if they did, though.
It would be awesome. Like, and here's the thing: if they were able to allow that to happen, it is because the Rhodes name is that valuable.
Well, no, if that happens because Vince isn't there anymore.
Yeah, but I'm saying
because Vince isn't there anymore and Tony Khan let it happen. That's why it happened.
The underlining tone of that is we don't like each other as business people, but we understand what that name means to this business. And if they're going to allow it to happen, it's because of the respect of that last name and what they brought to the business. It's just it's impressive. And Dusty is one of those trailblazers, and it's crazy how it just passed on to his kids and to Cody. So when people are like Cody crybabies, this, that, like there's more layers to this onion that you may not even know just because you're a Rock fan. You know what I mean? Like,
but oh man, is the Rock finding his fastball again? It took a little bit, but he's back.
It's getting a little better. Yeah,
he's back. No, it's good. He's back.
But it's a great time to be a pro wrestling fan. It's a great time for all this. Whether Cody wins or loses, I'm sure even if he loses, it's the money's in the chase, and the roads are always better when they're chasing. Like even if I think if Cody wins the title, I don't think Cody keeps it super long. I think it's a couple months and he loses it and he chases again. I think that's where Cody is going to thrive as a talent. And just as a human being, Cody embodies a lot of his dad, like helping others and being there for others. And if you have a couple extra bucks to help somebody else out, Cody will do that. Like Preston Vance is someone we worked with and got to meet at PPW. Preston Vance lived in Cody's house and helped take care of his dog. So and trained the Nightmare Factory so he can chase his dream. Like Cody has helped so many people, and he gets that from his dad. His dad was the same way. If he could help, he would. And it
always goes back to me to when Brody Lee passed, and the two people that were there when Brody's kid got the news were Big E and Cody Rhodes.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And it just, I don't know. It's crazy to think that, you look at where Vince is now, or maybe the guy who was the catalyst for a lot of the woes of the Rhodes family, and you look at where WWE sits right now, and at the end of the day, they have to say thank you, Rhodes, for that huge TKO acquisition, because without you training that next group of stars, we're not as valuable as a company as we think we are. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I think the people who made the dance where it is and the talent that came out of that crop made it good enough that TKO threw that big money.
Yeah, I think if you're going to credit anybody for that, I think the guy that gets most credit, besides like obviously the despicable as he is, Vince gets the most credit for that.
Listen,
but Nick Khan is that guy as far.
But listen, you can't go out and sell a team to someone if you don't have a good quarterback, and if you don't have a good head coach, and if you don't have a good that. And Dusty was the head coach that helped make the next generation of Tom Brady's.
I don't know if he was the head coach, but he had a definite impact.
Yeah. The stories are there, and they had to do promos, and they had to do hard. a lot
I'm
of
not trying to
really talented
minimize.
people.
I'm not trying to
A lot of
minimize what he
talented
did.
people are good at wrestling. But if
Yeah.
you're not a good promo, it doesn't matter how fucking great in ring you are sometimes, you know?
There were way better wrestlers than Dusty Rhodes, but there was never, ever a better babyface. And there probably never will be.
Hey, what do we got here? Cody does not win the title. F you. First and foremost.
Controversial take. Who knows? Who knows?
Listen, they got me last year. Who knows? You know,
they got me too, and I'll die on the hill. It was a bad move. We could do Rock versus Roman, no problem, if they would have did it last year.
Yep.
But I really would be very surprised if they didn't move. Well, that's very nice. I would be very surprised that they didn't move heaven and earth to not have this Rock Roman match if it wasn't to coronate Cody. If you're just gonna have Cody win it some other time or not win it at all, you just ignore the Cody chance and you do Rock Roman at WrestleMania and you have Cody beat Seth Rollins.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you see Cody's behind the scenes a role after his in-ring career is over? 100%. I also think Dustin, when he's done his bit where he's at, I think he's the next. Like, he has a school now that he's working with and doing a lot with and helping with. But I also see I see Dustin going back to NXT and helping out and ending his career, getting a Hall of Fame ring in WWE, the whole nine.
Oh, Dustin will absolutely go in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I 100% see that. I want Damian Priest winning and cashing in on Cody. I agree. Honestly, I think everyone has it penciled in that Damian Priest goes after the winner of Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre, and I think he swerves everybody and he goes after Cody.
I don't know if you have to do it that night. Sometimes you just want a moment.
Yeah.
And I think
let that moment happen. Maybe Raw after, or I think even that's too soon to take it the next night off Cody. Who knows?
France. Do it in France. Do it at Backlash. You can do it. You have until Money in the Bank. Like, literally, Priest can do that until, when's Money in the Bank? July?
Yeah.
June? You have until then. There's time.
The way I would do it with Damian, I wouldn't even have Damian Priest hint he's even looking at Cody. I would have him go, like, hint he's going here, going there, and then that the night Cody is like at his absolute worst, boom, Judgment Day music hits, and you're like, what the like? I think that's a better moment than what you, because it's almost the exact opposite of what you would expect.
Yeah.
And I think Damian Priest, my God, he is, if there's somebody I'm rooting for right now in the walls of WWE as someone who's going to get that push, it's the dude from the Monster Factory in Jersey. You know what I mean? Punishment Martinez. Great interview with Gabriel Hodder from the Primal Fear. Primal Fear gives a lot of their love to Damian Priest, to helping them get to where they are and helping them learn. Like, he's Damian Priest is their version of Dusty Rhodes. Like, they helped him. They helped them so much. So go check out that past interview. BP, before we get out of here, I just want to say another thank you to our members on our YouTube channel. I already said our 2 Grand Slam champions, Freak, Maniac, and Raz. What they get is early content that nobody else is getting right away. So we're recording a vlog Mania weekend. It'll drop. I'll edit it and put it up to YouTube. You guys get it a couple days before it airs to everybody. You'll get to all the 5 questions with ABJ as soon as I film and edit them. There's like 15, there's like 6 of them up right now that you can go watch. Parm is getting the super shout with the Triple Crown. So Parma is getting that, being a Triple Crown member. Anastasia, also a World Champ member. So she's getting that love and getting the easy access. And then we have our mid-carders, Peter DeLong, Adam the Guy, Kai, Ryan Fox, Danny F, Austin, Captain Butters 32, Devin the Tribal Chief, Steven Chambers, BR, Inspector Todd, Adam, Andrea, DM, and CJ, and James M, and then our tag team champions, Lilly and James K. So thank you everyone who's supporting the channel with subscriptions over on YouTube. It means the world to us. Please check out next content. We will be off next Sunday. I may also be live next Sunday, just not with BP. Saturday night's up in the air if we're going to be able to do it or not. Sunday's most likely a lock that we will be here for WrestleMania and at least night 2 to see Dusty. Hopefully Cody finish that story. It'll be myself, Lily, and Parm all on one camera in the same location watching WrestleMania, enjoying ourselves. So make sure we will see you guys next Sunday in one aspect or another. It may not be a tornado tag, but it may be a live stream. Tons of content coming. BP, anything you want to you guys want to plug? You want to plug before you get out of here?
The next thing I have going on is gonna be it's gonna be a little bit from now. 3 weeks from yesterday, I have Super Show 4 PPW at the Slatington Expo Center. April 20th. This is going to be a big one. You just talked about Primal Fear. They are the trios champions. Adrian Soriano, Primal Fear, is the PPW heavyweight champion. So I not quite announced what he's going to be doing solo, but he might be a little busy because Primal Fear and the Syndicate, Sam Adams and the Brothers Gray, they're getting their rematch at the Super Show. We're going to have a lot of fun. One of the big matches I might get a chance if I have the ability to sneak out from behind the curtain for this one. Just announced this week, Griffin McCoy, the top guy, and VSK at Super Show 4. That is
I love you, VSK, but it's top guy time. It's top guy time at PPW.
That's one I'm really looking forward to.
We're gonna see Griffin McCoy versus Jordan Oliver Saturday in Philly. Fucking sign me up. Inject that into my veins. We're literally seeing probably 5 of the next generation wrestlers at that Suplex Mania show.
That McCoy VSK match might have been a suggestion from somebody who might be a little close to the show.
It's a good book. It's a good booking. Yeah, thank you guys so much. Trying to think of anything else I want to get out there before we wrap up. Nothing I can honestly think of. Check out previous content, like and subscribe. Thank you guys all so much. Oh, BP, in 2 weeks, do we have an idea of an episode? That's what I want to talk to you about.
Do you want to decompress for Mania weekend and talk about everything that happened? Just a little more current event stuff.
So I know we talked. So you're saying the 5th we do a Mania, like a post Mania show. Like we have a couple days.
The 5th.
I'm sorry, the 12th. 7th. The 12th.
Yeah, that 12th or the 14th. That is. I'm looking at the days here. It's going to be a Friday.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong fucking calendar.
The 14th.
The week after Mania, the next Sunday after Mania. Yeah. So the next Sunday after Mania, we will do a post Mania conversation about what we thought of the show, how they tied up stories. Did they do a good job? Did they do a bad job?
Everything else that happened that weekend, it's going to be a wild one.
Add Gary Hart to the list.
Gary Hart would be interesting.
The Samoans. We do the full bloodline story.
How do you do that you'd spend like 2 weeks or 2 seconds on every one of them?
Samoans will be a thing.
Yeah,
but we're gonna reach out to some people. I'm gonna try to
maybe somebody I got to call a match for last night.
Who's that? Oh, Lance.
Lance was in action against Sean Carr.
Oh, how was that match?
That was a good one.
Lance is on a new level. I think Lance is banging on all cylinders right now. Lance.
Although I was very disappointed that Sean Carr was firmly on Team No Yeet.
Okay.
Firmly on Team No Yeet.
Team No Yeet for sure.
Until he got yeeted by Lance on Hawaii.
I don't want to brag or anything, but I was in a TikTok live and I was acknowledged by Zilla. I'm just saying.
Right on.
Zilla came in the chat and they said, "Who's the best member of the Bloodline?" And I said, "Lance." And Zilla went, "LOL." Like because not many unless you're in the know or you're in the Northeast area, Lance is not, or you're a huge MLW fan. You're like, "Oh, Lance," like you know what I mean. So he thought it was funny. I put Lance over.
Lance has not gotten that level of recognition. Yet
is the key word to that list. The history of ECW.
That's one I want to do a lot of prep for.
Yeah.
Especially now, like just kind of living a lot of it, just growing up outside of Philly as that was going on. Like literally just watching it flipping through channels on Sports Channel Philadelphia. What's this wrestling?
Yeah.
I recently, it was like 6 months ago, read Todd Gordon's book, which was very interesting. His side of the story of ECW.
Another name, manager Akbar.
The general Skandar Akbar. Yeah.
All good ones. Keep them comments coming. If you're watching this later or you're listening to this in your car and you're screaming into your speakers right now, do this episode. Comment. Head over to our social media. You could search my name, Anthony Blackwell Jr. That's kind of where everything's at. But and also huge thank you to Raz for the $3 super sticker. We made $3 this episode. We're killing it. We're doing it. I gotta be honest. The donations we've been getting, the people joining the memberships are all. It is so. Oh, I love this one. Classy Fetty Blassie.
Everybody wants shows about managers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with it.
Everybody wants a manager show.
You know what? What if we do an episode with a manager with a manager?
Yeah, there you go.
What if this stream becomes maybe championship material for an episode of The Manager.
There you go.
Let me reach out to that
He's
one.
a general manager, at least in PPW.
General manager. Maybe I reach out to him and I find out what his favorite manager is, and if it falls under Classy Freddie Blassie or anything like that, maybe a Sydney Bacabella episode.
I love Sydney Bacabella. I love Sydney Bacabella.
Bobby the Brain episode. I don't hate that.
There's nobody else. That is my all-time favorite wrestling personality is Bobby the Brain.
Yeah. I talked to a guy in a TikTok live. He said when he was growing up, he went to school with Bobby the Brain's niece. And like Bobby would pick him because they lived next door to each other, and Bobby would pick him up and take him home from school. I'm like, dude, that's the coolest thing. Yeah, the history of ROH. We might be able to have a guest on for that one. We know a former owner that we might be able to do that one.
Maybe he found his phone by now.
Yeah, hopefully he found his phone by now. Mike Tenney, he's actually scheduled
today.
For
Mike today.
He's actually scheduled for a podcast episode coming up next month.
Wait, what?
The ROH guy.
Oh, okay.
Kerry Silken.
I thought you were talking about Mike today. I'm like, you got Mike today? I didn't even think he was doing wrestling stuff anymore.
Kerry Silken for a future episode. Yeah, so we have all that stuff out there. It's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Well, so let's get some recommendations going, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Enjoy WrestleMania. Everyone stay safe. Be on the lookout for our WrestleMania vlog. I'm gonna vlog as much as I can this weekend, going to the different shows. If you're in the area, I'll be at Labor of Love doing 5 questions with ABJ. You don't have to be a wrestler to be on 5 questions with ABJ. It's open to anyone. So come see me. Let's get a photo together. Let's hang out. Let's have a beer at Attic Brewing, and let's let everyone enjoy Mania. If you are not in the Philadelphia area, please do me a huge favor.
Get there
or
actively
actively seek out how you can support those independent wrestling companies that are running that week. So whether
a lot of them are going to be on the IWTV,
whether it's on IWTV, Fight, or the Premier Network,
Triller,
like the GCW. So just go support it. Go watch it. Is there a show that you're not going to that you can't wait to come home and watch?
Bloodsport.
And why is it Bloodsport? And why is it Bloodsport?
That's just my flavor of wrestling. I love that stuff. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun. It's gonna be a fun time. Even if you don't go to anything, even if you don't go to anything, it's gonna be so much great stuff going on down there. It's wrestling Woodstock. It's gonna be, and it's in the greatest wrestling city in the world. And I don't say that with any bias. It's the greatest wrestling city in the world. It's gonna be special. It's gonna be a special time.
Yeah.
I think the big thing this show that surprised me, we set the over-under for the Dusty impressions at 6.5. We're at 6. The under wins. Did it, baby. Did it, baby.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, man. Joshi Mania weekend. There's a lot of Joshi matches. If you're a Stardom fan, there's a lot going on that weekend too. Yeah.
Stardom's having a show at the arena. I'm going the 2300.
Yeah, Willow's working a Stardom show. There's Stardom talent wrestling on ROH's show. Like it's
Zaya
cool,
Brooks
man.
is going to be on that show. She was very, very, very much a pleasure to work with.
It's gonna be awesome. A little maybe teaser. They couldn't say anything in their live stream on TikTok, but I asked Polo Del Mar when they were live on TikTok. I said, "What are you most excited for this Mania weekend besides Effie's?" Or I said, "And why is it Effie?" And they said, "There's a match that hasn't been announced yet that's going to happen at Effie's show that they are very excited about." Oh. And I'm like, "So there's an undisclosed match, possibly. I'm not breaking anything, but this is just what I heard on TikTok Live. So there might be something happening on Effie's match, Effie's gay brunch in Philly that has not been announced yet. So something keep an eye on. So many great shows. Go support independent wrestling. Enjoy WrestleMania. We will try our absolute best to be here for night 1. If we're not, we'll definitely be here night 2. We love you so much. Support wrestling, support independent wrestling. Don't be toxic. Like it all. There's no reason for tribalism. Everything is good. Just enjoy pro wrestling. It's the best time to be alive, baby. Let's do it.
We'll
see you next time.
Jeez.
Hey, thanks for watching this presentation. Like, share, and subscribe for more.